Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to some of you as well. Like Michelle said, we'll be talking about some of our latest innovations that we're doing with Citrix. Before we jump into some of that, we'll just do a quick overview of some of the offerings that we have here at Atlantis, as well as going in depth into what we announced at the Citrix Summit event here just last week. That's some pretty exciting news to share with you guys. So just to kind of give you an idea of where we are and who we are as a company, we've really grown up in the VDI virtual workspace market for over 10 years now. We are in about 7 of the top 10 banks, and we have today over 1 million virtual workspaces that customers log into every day and use a Atlantis-powered desktop. So we have an extensive breadth in this space. We started with our initial product of Atlantis Ilio and then matured that over time with new features and functionality and capabilities. And the reason why we've been so successful is because for most Citrix customers, these are the takeaways that we see that really impact and really help with the adoption of virtual workspaces by saving customers somewhere between typically 50 and 90% from an infrastructure perspective, and increasing the storage capacity for customers by up to 10 times than without an Atlantis solution in place. And we also provide the best user experience when it comes to virtual workspaces. So customers would we've seen customers where, you know, they have like 90-second to 2-minute logins, and we're able to come in and provide login times that are significantly reduced. Login times such as like 5 seconds down from 60 seconds, and then also being able to launch applications much more quickly than without us as well. So, you know, large reports that would take, 40 seconds in an extended period of time to open up, we can reduce that down significantly and create a fantastic user experience, one that's much better than an actual PC. And we also allow customers the ability to have agility across any types of platforms. So whether you have like a legacy 3-tier type architecture, or you want to move to hyperconverged type solutions and modernize your data center by converging all of those, the networking, the storage, and the compute into a single box, or moving to the cloud, we could provide a unified platform so that your infrastructure is cohesive across all those different types of architectures, all those different types of hardware and scenarios. That makes it a lot easier to be more agile across all those different hardware types and architectures, as I mentioned. But as a result of that, it really allows us to provide more consistent experience for customers when it comes to trying to scale this out, and to eliminate a lot of the guesswork as it becomes very prevalent in desktop virtualization as a difficult thing to really accomplish, is trying to get the right amount of resources for the right amount of workload that you need to deliver. We are going to share with you some of those capabilities that we've expanded on and worked with Citrix to try to help simplify that, especially when it comes around to deployment and management. And the way we provide these values to our customers is through our 2 product offerings. One is Atlantis USX, which is our software-defined storage offering, and that basically allows you to lay down our software and set that in front of any type of storage infrastructure, and then provide all the enterprise data services and the benefits that we provide from data inline deduplication and performance I/O acceleration capability to any type of storage or hardware that you have. And if that's something that you want more easily to consume in more of a turnkey style fashion, we have Atlantis HYPERSCALE, which is our hyper-converged appliance that comes with our Atlantis USX software under the covers that allows you to easily implement hyper-converged infrastructure in 4 easy steps and immediately start supporting virtual workloads with Citrix right out of the gate and right out of the box in under an hour. So it's very simplistic and very turnkey and very easy to modularly scale in that type of scenario and that offering. And both of these platforms actually last year won Best of Synergy, which is actually a Synergy first for winning in 2 different categories. So we're quite proud of that, and it continues to show value for our Citrix customers. Being able to simplify overall virtual workspaces and then reduce the amount of infrastructure that's required to deliver that. And so again, the way we are doing that with USX is by taking our software and sitting in front of any type of storage you have. So whether it's a all-flash array or a SAN, or if you've got local spinning disk or local SSDs, or even if you have RAM. So we actually can take RAM and use that as a storage repository for you to drop virtual machines onto. And that is actually one of the fastest ways to deliver performance for virtual workspaces, is by doing it that way. And the way we can use that type of storage as a storage repository is because of the inline deduplication that we provide. And so we are reducing the amount of capacity required by up to 90%. And as a result of our software and all of that, all of the intelligence built in, we increase the amount of IOPS that storage is capable of delivering as a result. So when you look at the back-end storage, here's an actual real-world customer example of where you can see the amount of IOs that's being hit against the storage array before Atlantis is implemented, and then you can see after Atlantis is implemented, the IO drops off a cliff and allows you to now repurpose all of that storage that you had with for other workloads, or reclaim a lot of capacity that you can use for other workloads as well. And so this is typically where we see Atlantis USX being leveraged, is sitting in front of those existing storage arrays, or allowing customers to adopt a roll your own type hyperconverged solution with using USX and providing those benefits right away. And like I mentioned with Atlantis HYPERSCALE, we provided as a turnkey style solution that's capable of supporting 600 desktops and about 975 XenApp sessions, all faster than a PC because of the I/O and performance that we're providing. Like I mentioned earlier, your logins will be faster, your application performance will be better, and really another value that we see with customers is that with virtual workspaces, it's really difficult to provide a consistent performance, because different users are using their desktop and their applications in various ways, and so that could create a lot of unpredictable type scenarios as people hammer the machine or hammer the environment quite extensively. So with us being able to provide all of this additional performance, it creates a much more consistent user experience, and so users are less likely to call into the help desk saying, my desktop or my applications are performing very slow, and we can do that all for under $150 a desktop with this solution. And the hyperscale unit actually comes in 2 and 4 node models. We typically see that most customers adopt the 12 terabyte model just because it makes the best bang for your buck in terms of performance, capacity, and what most customers need in terms of sizing for an environment of around that size for 600 or 975 XenApp sessions. And again, one of the biggest takeaways when you talk about virtual workspaces is the simplicity of adopting virtual workspaces, because historically VDI and XenApp has been very difficult to implement and very costly as well, and really prohibited the adoption from what VDI can provide from all the value points of security and device independence and being able to mobilize your workforce. So this really simplifies all that and takes a lot of the cost away, really expediting the process of you being able to adopt virtual workspaces in your environment much sooner. So let's jump into all of the new innovations that we have worked with Citrix on. So back in May of 2016, we announced a strategic partnership to continue down that path and story of simplifying virtual workspaces and VDI, and then again driving down the costs. Because like I mentioned previously, this has been something that's really plagued the industry historically and prohibited adoption for customers and environments. And when we look at, so Atlantis took a look at this and said, you know, when you look at the workspace infrastructure stack, it's very disjointed. You've got your desktops, you've got the orchestration layers, you've got USX that's, you know, sitting in front of that, you've got your hypervisor, and then you've got the physical, you've got your physical environment as well. That's you know, all disjointed and not cohesive, and so this is where the inherent complexity lies when you look at workspace infrastructures. Is all of these pieces and components that you have to deliver is very challenging to do so. And so when you look at what we're doing with Citrix, we are integrating the capabilities and the Citrix management tools and exposing all of the Atlantis USX capabilities up into those tools so that you have a much more cohesive management platform to more easily adopt and manage and orchestrate all of your delivery models for application virtualization and desktop virtualization. So it really simplifies things, and we're also expanding those capabilities into the Azure cloud as well. So Citrix announced previously that they are working on a desktop as a service offering with Azure, and so we're working with Citrix to be part of that stack to, again, provide that cohesive, agile infrastructure so that you can have the same unified platform, whether it's on-prem or it's in the cloud, and you can easily migrate and move and manage all of those VMs and those workloads regardless of where they're sitting and regardless of the type of architecture that they're sitting on. So when you look at that strategy compared to other hyperconverged vendors, they stop short at, you know, just managing the hypervisor and the hardware, and so we see it as a next evolutionary step is to extend up into that stack so that you can manage all of your apps, your infrastructure, all of your hardware, etc., from a single unified management platform. And so we announced the product called the the Workspace stack for Citrix, and that is to eliminate some of these challenges by providing seamless orchestration, end-to-end monitoring, simplifying the administration, all in a simple unified infrastructure and platform, as I mentioned before. So let's take a look at some of the integration that we've done so far. So we announced this back in actually October, and a lot of the deliverables have been rolling out in different stages. So when the first iteration of this was our integration into Desktop Director. So by exposing all of the information that USX has already been collecting, we could present that in a simple, present that in the actual Director Management Console so that now you as an administrator have an idea and visibility as far as how many IOPS that your environment is currently leveraging. And if you are in a scenario where you are running out of IOPS, alert and let the administrators know so that they could be proactive in doing something about it. Maybe your latency or throughput is also, you know, cratering or having issues. We, you know, are exposing that data and putting that up into Director so that you now can do something about it and be more proactive, and instead of being disjointed and having to check different consoles and not have that visibility or that alerting capability. That's all been solved, so you could troubleshoot those workspace issues much, much quicker and be proactive about, you know, if you hit a certain threshold as an administrator, you could say, hey, let me know, and, you know, if I hit like 60% IOPS, for example, and then do something about it as a result of that. And we manage the and monitor the capacity as well. So if you can see that you know, you're running out of capacity, we'll let you know. And so now, whether you when you're looking at, you know, managing a session for a user, you can see what, through this console, you can see what the end-to-end communication is like, so the end user's experience from their connection, how the infrastructure, how the Citrix components are being orchestrated and what the health status of those are, and now the underlying infrastructure as well. You can say, what's the performance of the hardware. So end-to-end visibility across, from the endpoint down to the underlying storage, you could see cohesively all through this unified console. So when we do that, there's when we expose all of those metrics and that information up through the stack into the Citrix tools, it allows us some new capabilities as a result of that. So now what I can do is maintain detailed historical information about what my environment is doing. So you can say that or have some idea of what a typical user looks like from a workload perspective. So, what does a finance user typically consume from an IOPS perspective, or, what do factory workers tend to look like from a data modeling and resource perspective. So having that information and exposing that into Director allows us to maintain that historical information and kind of model our users and take a lot of the guesswork away from having to understand or having that difficulty of trying to understand, what those users look like. And so you can also look at this from a implementing changes into the environment perspective and what the impacts of that are. So if I go from Office 2010 to 2016, how big of an increase does that impact in my environment? And then you can size accordingly so that if you pilot your users and you take a subset of those and you measure, the differences, you can then be proactive about scaling and managing the resources accordingly to, be proactive about and reducing the amount of risks as you scale or implement changes into the infrastructure. So you can now, identify trends and have that scalability with confidence because you know what your users are doing and what they're capable of. So the next iteration of this is that we're integrating this capability and this information into Desktop Studio. So Desktop Studio is obviously the management tool for provisioning and delivering the VMs from XenApp and XenDesktop. And so we're working with Citrix to take this analytical data and inject that into Studio and then being able to make decisions based off of that. So today I talked about some of the alerting capabilities that is inherent as part of exposing this data up into Director. But what we want to get to, and what our vision is to make it so that if we see that you're running out of IOPS, for example, spin up another volume automatically and then move those users over to that volume to, again, reduce the amount of risk in the environment and make sure that everybody always has a really good user experience. Also, making it so that whenever you do scale up an environment and you have a modeling of a user type, such as like I mentioned, like an executive or a finance type user, when you go to scale that user up, Studio would be able to determine, if you have the right amount of resources available, and if not, do something about it. Go ahead and provision up an additional volume, and also tell the administrator exactly how much, based on the resources that have been presented and are available, how many additional desktops or how many additional applications would they be able to provision based on the amount of resources left. So again, really trying to eliminate the risk and simplifying the deployment and the overall management ongoing with virtual workspaces is really the vision that we're trying to get to. So continuing down the story of really simplifying the overall delivery of virtual workspaces with Citrix, we've partnered with Citrix with the Lifecycle Management team, which has now been renamed as of last week to Smart Tools. And Citrix Smart Tools basically is their cloud orchestration and management layer. So basically what happens is we can work with the Lifecycle Manager to answer a few questions as an administrator and pull down all of the infrastructure required to deliver a virtual workspace. So going from, for example, if I was to take Atlantis HYPERSCALE and answer those 4 questions, as I mentioned, just, what's my IPs, et cetera, that I want, stand that environment up, and then answer a few questions or as it relates to my environment for the requirements for XenApp and XenDesktop, like what's my domain and some of that information, pull that information down or pull those bits down from the Citrix cloud and then automate the complete installation so that, especially in those mid-market type customers or, remote, I can see this in remote office and branch office type, environments as well, being able to simply turnkey the solution to pull down all of the infrastructure required reduces a lot of the complexity to deliver those virtual workspaces and simplifies that or allows somebody who's not very knowledgeable in terms of delivering Citrix infrastructure to just answer some few questions and voila, they've got an entire Citrix infrastructure stack set up. It's something that we've been working on and we actually have a proof point in part of the announcement that we made at Citrix Summit last week, which I'll touch on in just a bit. So as I mentioned, the last iteration of that is that, so again, we see our Atlantis USX being leveraged a lot today for taking customers who are still on legacy 3-tier type architectures, server, storage, and networking as all separate components, and increasing the performance and capacity, as I mentioned, as well as all of our enterprise data services of snapshotting and replication and teleport and all those things that our customers have come to grow and love with our capabilities, and then providing those same capabilities into migrating to a more hyper-converged type solution. So whether you're on a 3-tier or hyper-converged, we would provide that same management stack and then have that delivered from the cloud from a Citrix perspective, and then orchestrate those same capabilities and allow people or customers to adopt that onto the Azure cloud platform. So if you want to, automate the installation and deliver that on the cloud, we have that capability, and we're working with Citrix to finalize the details around having that offering as part of Azure and having that cohesive platform. So if you're in an environment where maybe your business is cyclical and you need to scale up just temporarily or quickly, you would be able to do that by leveraging Azure with our offering coupled with Citrix to automate this. And so really when you look at everything as a whole, these are the takeaways that we see as part of the workspace stack value. So having that more one-click style virtual workspace infrastructure where you could just simply click, answer a question or two, and then your entire infrastructure from a when you talk about having no infrastructure at all to racking and stacking a server, implementing the infrastructure for that, and then pulling down the Citrix implementation. With this latest announcement that we'll talk about here in a minute, you can have a full-on stack, soup to nuts, in about 2 hours time frame to be able to deliver a complete desktop or host as an app application with no server infrastructure whatsoever set up. We could do that in about 2 hour time frame. So that's the vision, is the one-click style virtual workspace infrastructure to significantly reduce and provide quicker time to value and minimize your deployment risk as it relates to that. And that's another thing that some of our customers have given us feedback on, is that having this type of model also allows for a lot of standardization, so that if you're doing a decentralized model where you're deploying VDI in all of these different areas, you can have a consistent experience from a management perspective. And we see a lot of customers have reiterated to us that there's a lot of value in that. And I mentioned previously the analytics-based type of provisioning. Again, maximizing resource utilization, making sure that the resources that are scheduled and delivered are being used exactly and their maximum potential, to eliminate any type of resource waste that could inherently be part of your current virtual workspace infrastructure today. So we're trying to get to, making that the most efficient use of your resources by providing those analytics back into the management infrastructure and the management layer to eliminate the sizing and the guesswork and make that much more accurate and make sure that your users have a consistent and best user experience as they continue to use their desktops day in, day out. And excuse me, having that single pane of glass, really for us, we see that it's going to save considerably in terms of operational costs and eliminating a lot of go here, go there, where in my environment is the user experience falling down? Is it at the connection? Is it at the infrastructure layer? Is there something wrong with my Citrix components? I don't know. Well, having all of that in a single pane of glass allows you to have that visibility so that you quickly pinpoint and troubleshoot those issues much more quickly. And again, take all the risk out of your environment by having the capability to alert you and be proactive about making sure that your environment is always running in its most operational state, or optimal state rather. And being able to have that on-demand desktop delivery is another value as we look at expanding our capabilities into the workspace stack with Azure and being able to expand quickly and dynamically in the cloud, and even getting to a point where customers could adopt a desktop as a service type model and really being able to rapidly deploy apps or desktops and scale up or scale down quite quickly. So that was those were basically the announcements that we made in October, and have continued to deliver on those promises, and worked with Citrix continuously to make sure that we get these out to our customers and they start seeing the value and accepting the value of what these integration pieces can provide. And so our latest proof point of that, and this is something we announced last week with Citrix and HP, is the development of the HPE Intelligent Edge Workspace appliance. And so by having this cohesive layer of the orchestration layer and the management stack, as I described previously, and then now integrating that capability with the HPE Edgeline Workspace, now the full stack, from the bottom up, is cohesive and easily manageable as a result. And so this is part of excuse me, what Citrix Ready has created a program called the HCI Workspace Appliance Program, and so we are the first participants. So HPE, Citrix, and Atlantis have partnered together to build the first purpose-built virtual workspace appliance that's dedicated and specifically built with the mindset of delivering virtual workspaces and XenApp workloads as well. So this is a collaboration with HPE, as I said, with the HPE Edgeline EL4000, which is a 4-node 1U appliance that has 4 small Moonshot cartridges in it, coupled with the Atlantis USX software to optimize and deliver the hyperconverged solution and present that storage in a more optimized way. And again, providing all of our data services of inline deduplication, performance I/O acceleration, and all of those capabilities, and combining that with the components and capabilities of Citrix Workspace Cloud. So having that capability allows customers to easily adopt and deliver a virtual workspace in this appliance in that turnkey style fashion. And that's really the vision that we are continuing to, as I mentioned, with our partnership that we announced with Citrix back in May of last year, is to keep driving down the cost of virtual workspaces and keep simplifying it so that guys like yourselves can more easily adopt and implement these solutions and start reaping the benefits of virtual workspaces that we all know is becoming increasingly more valuable, especially as we look at the market in terms of cybersecurity and all of those pain points that IT continues to have, that virtual workspace infrastructure can more easily simplify and adopt. So why, what is the value of having Atlantis and Citrix and HP really bring? So, we have, as I demonstrated earlier with some of the information about, where we are in the marketplace and having such an extensive breadth of seats deployed for virtual workspaces, and then HP's presence and dominance in the server market and just overall platforms and the services that they provide, and then having Citrix's proven strength in terms of providing virtual workspaces and VDI and hosted shared applications. That's all we've been quite successful in the enterprise, and like I mentioned previously, that's typically been the area of focus for a lot of customers to adopt is those with large scale enterprises who have the huge IT departments and the big budgets that are capable of adopting these type of workloads in their environment. And so we wanted to bring that enterprise winning formula that we've been successful at to the mid-market so that we could start providing value for those customers who could really benefit from all of those capabilities. And so we also wanted to make it simple and cost effective, as I mentioned, but really make it very low touch so that it's a set and forget type solution. Doesn't take much. You don't need to send a rocket scientist out to adopt or deploy these workspace appliances. We wanted to really simplify all that, and so by bringing all the historical capability that we've done for the enterprise, we feel us three combined really can start providing that value to the customers and the mid-market and the smaller medium businesses, and especially for those remote access and remote branch office type workloads. So just to reiterate a little bit more, one click down into what the Intelligent Edge Workspace is it's the Edgeline 4000. So this is the appliance that was announced back at HP Discover in London, and I think it was like 4 months ago. And this, so it's got 4 M510 cartridges, which is about, I believe it's 16 cores. And the preliminary testing that we've done shows that this appliance will support 150 VDI sessions and about 300 XenApp sessions. So, really, and that would be a modular, scalable type solution as well. So you could just add more and more virtual workspaces and make that simple to scale up and have some predictability as far as what that appliance is capable of delivering. So it's going to be purpose-built for XenApp and XenDesktop, running on Xen Server, and again, all of this would be provisioned and deployed, and I'll show you a few screenshots of exactly what that looks like in here in just a moment. So we announced that last week, and availability for this product will be in the next 60 days. So we're really excited to bring to market the first virtual workspace appliance that's ever been created. And again, what Citrix deems as what a virtual workspace appliance is just not only having the hyperconverged and simplistic story about delivering the infrastructure in a turnkey style fashion, but also taking that next step of delivering all of those components and pieces from the cloud, as I mentioned previously. So having all of that turnkey style and pushing that down into the Edgeline appliance is the first iteration of product that can do this today, and we're the only ones and only solution that can deliver all of this in a simple automated turnkey style deployment. So real quick, just to show you, this is the actual implementation or the initial screenshot that you see when you bring up the Intelligent Edge Workspace appliance. So you see that you've got a few steps, you've got some prerequisites that we check and make sure everything's A-OK. We ask you some environmental questions about your infrastructure and networking, and then you just simply click next, and we provision and aggregate all of the storage that is physically present. We allocate that and bring that up into the Atlantis stack and optimize that and present that as optimized volumes. And all in a single 4-node cluster that's capable of fault tolerance, so that if one of those nodes fail, you can continue to operate, and we'll have that storage available as well. So very simplistic in terms of getting the infrastructure stood up and ready to go, so that you could go to the next step, which would be to deploy all of the required infrastructure from Citrix as well. So again, using smart tools and the blueprint that Atlantis has created and supplying that onto the Edgeline appliance will automate all of the steps necessary to create all of your requirements for simply delivering a VDI desktop on top of Citrix and brokering that connection and providing all of that in a simplistic, turnkey style type approach. Now, I will say that this is an optional step. So if you just want the infrastructure and you want to, do the traditional model of deploying virtual workspaces in your own unique fashion, or maybe you've got some other sort of requirements, then what the, initial offering is as far as what we are delivering and how we're delivering it from a, Citrix components perspective, then by all means, you can just stop at just provisioning the infrastructure and stop there. But if you want to take that next step, we've got the tools ready for you so that you can simply adopt this. So again, all of this combined is really what is continuing to go towards that vision and strategy of simplifying the cost and eliminating a lot of the complexities, so that you can easily start providing virtual workspaces in your environment along with Citrix today. So we have available, and we announced this back in October, as the Atlantis USX Community Edition. So if you've never had an opportunity to really kick the tires with Atlantis before, I would encourage you to visit atlantiscomputing.com/CE, which is our Community Edition, which allows you to take 100 gig volume and start seeing all of the benefits that we provide in terms of enterprise data services. So, all of our performance I/O and deduplication benefits and teleport. We've got now in our latest 3.5.1 release, we've got VM level replication, and that's dedupe aware. So if you have two different environments in two different locations, we will replicate just the delta changes between site A and site B. So all of these benefits you can see and evaluate with our Atlantis USX Community Edition. So I really encourage you guys to visit that site and take a look at it and download it today if you can. And as far as if you want to learn more about the workspace stack for Citrix that I mentioned today and kind of dove into a little bit, as well as the Intelligent Edge workspace that we recently announced, you can go to atlantiscomputing.com and go to our solutions page for virtual workspaces and dive into the details of what this box actually represents and what it's capable of delivering and how that will be beneficial for your environment. I believe Michelle has put those links in the chat as well, so if you didn't get a chance to write down or jot down some of those links, they're available in the chat window so you can see those as well. And I wanted to make sure that we left some time for Q&A, and so I will start taking questions. So please feel free to use the GoToWebinar panel there that has a questions window, so that you guys can ask any types of questions that you want. Yes, this webinar will be recorded. So yesterday, some of you may have noticed that HP acquired another vendor that somewhat sits in this space. So the way we see, so as far as the differentiation between who HP acquired and where we are providing value here, this product. So just from a viability perspective, this is something that HP was aware about the acquisition that they were making, and still continued to partner with us and Citrix to go to market and create this joint solution because of, again, the historic value that we've provided in this space. we have, because of our breadth and how long we've been, well positioned for providing the best, fastest virtual workspaces and eliminating all the challenges around desktop virtualization, they continue to partner with us and continue down this path. And so we are the only ones, again, with this solution that can provide an automated turnkey style fashion implementation, soup to nuts, from no infrastructure to a complete, full Citrix implementation. And we also are offering this on Zen server, so there's no VTAX or any type of hypervisor overhead that prevents you from, exponentially increases the cost of the solution. And with that integration of us working towards having that cloud integration with Azure and Hyper-V as we continue down this path is really, what helps us provide a strong track record for providing, a lot of value in Workspace. And so that's why we continue down this path. And with Edgeline and Moonshot, we see that this is a really great platform for customers to really adopt that solution. So one of the questions is, does your product work with Microsoft storage spaces? So we are working with Microsoft closely to continue to develop all of our solutions around, Microsoft type solutions. One of those being Hyper-V. So and towards the middle of this year, we are working towards having the Hyper-V capability and the Azure capability wrapped up, so that we'll support and have capability around Hyper-V solutions, so that we'll support VMware, Zen Server, and Hyper-V as well. And just to add to that, so today the Atlantis USX software that I mentioned and HYPERSCALE are both supported today on Zen Server and VMware. This offering specifically today, at least in this initial release, is geared around Zen Server, again, to really eliminate the VTAX. And actually, this is a metric and data point for Citrix customers, is that Citrix has done a lot of research in that area, and when it comes to Zen Desktop implementations, they see that the majority of Zen Desktop and Zen App implementations are actually on Zen Server hypervisor. So a lot of customers don't necessarily need or want to pay for the VMware tax for supporting those type of workloads, and maybe they use those for, they may use VMware, etc., for server type virtualization or general purpose type workloads. The majority of Citrix implementations are indeed on Zen Server, so that's really interesting takeaway for us, and why we continue down the path of supporting and delivering this out of the gate with Zen Server. So as far as the difference between, so the question is, what's the difference between Atlantis USX and HYPERSCALE appliance? So USX can be put on any type of hardware. It's more of a roll your own type solution. So if you want to develop your own hyperconvert solution, and maybe you don't like the platform or the offerings that are available in HYPERSCALE, you could take USX software and develop your own hyperconverts offering or solution. Or you can repurpose and extend the life of your existing SAN or your existing storage and use USX software to deliver that. But if you want more of a, I'm implementing new infrastructure, or you want more of a turnkey style approach that's really easy to adopt and deliver, the HYPERSCALE appliance has all of that into a simplistic, easy to consume type model where you just stand it up, similar to how I showed you the capability of what we're doing with the Edgeline Workspace appliance. That capability is with HYPERSCALE too, where you just simply answer a few questions and then off you go running. You've got an infrastructure that's delivered in under an hour, and I mentioned 2 hours earlier. That's the Edgeline Workspace appliance, where we are delivering the infrastructure in under an hour, but then it takes another hour or so to deploy all the Citrix components and bits as well. So that's where we see a lot of customers using USX is either to roll their own, or extend the life of their existing infrastructure, and HYPERSCALE is more of a moving and migrating towards modern style architectures of converged systems is really what we see. As far as the difference between HYPERSCALE and the new Edgeline appliance itself, the biggest thing that I see right off the bat is the size and capacity and scalability of it. So with HYPERSCALE, it supports 600 desktops out of the gate and 975 XenApp sessions. I mentioned in the Workspace appliance, it's about 150, in our preliminary testing, it's 150 VDI sessions and 300 XenApp sessions. So it's much more smaller scale, so the barrier to entry is much less as well. So the upfront cost is going to be lower as a result of that. And so if you're looking for a smaller scale type of implementation, the Edgeline Workspace appliance is going to be more applicable. As far as, excuse me, the capability that we've done where the integration of, automating Citrix and that whole implementation aspect, that offering is available today, or sorry, in the next 60 days rather, with the Intelligent Edge Workspace appliance. We're looking at bringing those capabilities into HYPERSCALE as well, which would allow a much more higher scale type model and automating all of that. But for this initial offering, we wanted to make sure that we partnered with HP, partnered with Citrix to deliver this. So those are the initial differences as well. But both are a single source of supports. Both are 365 7 days, or sorry, 365 24/7 type support. So ongoing maintenance and all that stuff is the same as well there. What are your customers typically doing to provide backup or DR for the solution? So a lot of our customers are using Atlantis USX to deploy in the cloud or maybe a different infrastructure. So the good thing about using USX or HYPERSCALE or the combination of thereof, which you can do, is having that, again, that cohesive platform across different infrastructure. So for example, if you had like HYPERSCALE on-prem and you had a DR site, you could use USX at your DR site and use perhaps a more cost-effective type hardware model where we provide all of the replication services to really reduce the amount of footprint that you need while allowing you to use commodity type hardware just to provide a DR solution. So one of the things that's really neat about Atlantis USX and our capability about dedupe and backing that up and providing resiliency is we've got the VM level replication, but we've also got teleport, which actually teleports an entire volume in a dedupe state. So the only thing that we will send across the wire between one environment to the next is, I mean, even from you've got nothing at site A, or sorry, you've got everything at site A and you've got nothing at site B, because the file system is the same across both sites. We could send all of the bits across deduped so that you don't have to reinflate your data before it's sent across the wire. And so that really, reduces the amount of initial transferring between one DR site to another, and also with that ongoing VM level replication as well as the volume level replication, we could just keep sending the delta bits across and really optimize the way that you provide your disaster recovery plan. So that's really what we see customers doing, is that they may adopt hyperconvergence in one location or do hyperconvergence at both locations and say, I want HYPERSCALE at site A and HYPERSCALE at site B. Those boxes can, replicate that data very simplistic. The other thing is that with USX and people deploying that into the cloud, it's very cheap to put your data in the cloud, but it's very expensive to take it back out. And so if we're deduplicating that, and sending that back down, if you want to take your data back out of the cloud, by deduplicating that, we are reducing the amount of, spend to extract that data back down. So a question is, can you elaborate a little bit more about Azure solutions and timing of the risk? So again, we're looking at, we're working with Microsoft and Citrix to be part of the Azure stack. We're possible. I mean, the time frame is around, probably beginning of second half time frame. So we're still working on, the engineering aspects of that, as well as the overall, being added into the portfolio of their solutions, and then being part of the Citrix stack as well as an optional capability. So the thing about storage in the cloud is, yes, it's cheap. Storage is cheap. The thing that is difficult or expensive is fast storage in the cloud. When you look at, performance and things like that, suddenly, and SLAs, and you're trying to use desktop virtualization in the cloud, it's not exactly a cheap thing to do, because in order to get the performance that you need, for cloud or in the cloud, for VDI and XenApp workloads, that can be quite expensive. And so with us providing our data services that I talked about, we can provide all that performance, using rudimentary storage, and really eliminate and offset a lot of the costs from an expensive type cloud solution. Sorry, I'm just reading through the questions here. What is the typical cost of desktop per seat equivalent of a knowledge worker with Intel graphics? So I will say this. Let me just point out that this initial offering doesn't have the Intel graphics cartridges as part of the Edgeline Workspace appliance. We're exploring on the next iteration of this. We see that having a graphics offering centered around Workspace and the Intelligent Edge product. So we're working on that. Those conversations are occurring. So we feel that this is something that's going to be on the horizon, because we see more and more customers are adopting graphics, or even lower end graphic type GPUs, because just the nature of workloads these days, with Windows 10 leveraging GPUs and Office 2016 and things like Chrome now leveraging GPUs, it's much more efficient and creates a much better user experience when you at least have some sort of graphics processing unit inside the server. So we understand that, and that will be something that we're looking at exploring and extending the capability. But as far as cost goes, we have historically provided solutions that have always been around $200 per seat or lower, and with us bringing us to market in the next 60 days, those details will be revealed. But historically, that's what we've provided as a target price point, and we feel that this will continue to be around that type of price point as well. So the question is, does the HP appliance have a more capacity than Atlantis HYPERSCALE or vice versa? So the HP appliance is the lower capacity and lower scalability type unit. So it has only the capability of supporting 150 desktops, 300 XenApp sessions. HYPERSCALE, Atlantis HYPERSCALE, is capable of delivering 600 desktops and about 975 XenApp sessions. The HP appliance, I believe, has about 6 terabytes of usable capacity, if memory serves me correctly. And the Atlantis offerings are, for the 4-node equivalent, is a 12 terabyte option and a 24 terabyte option. So not only in terms of compute, the actual CPU that's in the HYPERSCALE appliance versus the HPE appliance, more robust and much more powerful, we also have more capacity as a result of that as well. So there was a question about VMware support on this model. That's something that's also currently being explored. Certainly something that we feel that could and something we will work towards addressing and adding as part of the portfolio. But for the initial program that Citrix has announced with the HCI Workspace Appliances program by Citrix Ready, the requirement out of the gate is to have Zen server support. So we wanted to make sure that we first have an offering that is supported and adopted by Citrix. And also, like I said, with the market and the amount of implementations of Zen Desktop and Zen App, majority of them being on Zen Server, it made just the most amount of sense for us to partner with Citrix and continue the Zen Server story, and for this initial release, make sure that we had it on Zen Server. Okay. If there's no other questions, I appreciate everyone's time. And like I said, if you have any, I would encourage you guys to go check out our website and also take a look at downloading the USX Community Edition and start seeing what we can provide from a Atlantis perspective. And thank you guys, and see you next time. Take care.